There are lots of financial talking heads out there, but there's only one who's local to Tucson. Welcome to Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman is a certified financial planner, and he's here to help you with your financial questions. Today, we'll try to educate you about the financial world and encourage you to think of solutions to your financial goals. So, let's get started. Saving with Silverman starts now.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Saving with Silverman, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. Thanks so much for listening to the show this week. As always, joining us and serving our listening audience right here in Tucson and Southern Arizona is Mark Silverman, the president of Silverman and Associates. Mark is a CFP professional, that's a certified financial planner professional, and available to you anytime by just calling or texting 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Welcome, Mark. How are you, bud?
I'm doing good, Mark. How about you? It's been a while since we've spoken.
Yeah, been a few weeks. I hope you're doing well and things are going good for you.
Things are good. Hot, as always, in Tucson. Actually, hotter than normal lately.
Real, yeah.
But
seems to be the case across the country. I've been looking at, watching a lot of that stuff, and it's just been hot all over, so... I think it might be one of those years.
Here.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, we got a great show lined up for folks today, so I hope everybody sticks around. And like I said, if you'd like to reach out to Mark, it's easy to do anytime. You don't have to wait till the end of the show. And I know your cell phone's handy because we can't seem to live without those things nearby us nowadays. So feel free to call anytime or text 520-333-7601. We're going to dive into the mailbag, as always, a little later in the show. We're going to talk about some of our financial feelings. And don't worry, it doesn't get to Dr. Phil on there, but it gets interesting. And we're going to start off the show by going with some hidden expenses, because these are those things that I think, Mark, sneak up and bite people in the retirement plan when they're not paying attention. Those little hidden items that you can't plainly see, but they're certainly there, right?
They are.
And they tend to nibble away at the, I guess at the bottom line, if you will, of your retirement plan, and you're just not focusing on those. And we'll go over a few of those right now. I'll give you some topics, and you kind of tell us some things to be on the lookout for when it comes to things such as like mutual fund expenses. They can chip away.
And that's a big one, Mark. And, no investments out there are free, so everything has an expense to it. But mutual funds tend to be ones that have a lot of hidden fees and expenses, and I think that's by design. And I've said this before, in my opinion, you're better off owning exchange-traded funds, what are known as ETFs, over mutual funds. But mutual funds, most people are focused on the administrative expenses that come with the funds, but there's more fees than that. Just what's listed in the prospectus is what's there, but you also have to look at the statement of additional information. There's a great article, Mark, that I've always referred to with clients that came out a few years ago in Forbes. It's the real cost of owning a mutual fund. And in that article, they spell out that depending on the fund, you could be looking somewhere between 3 to 4% per year in hidden fees and expenses. And most people are unaware of that. It's a great article. You can Google it. Like I said, it came out in Forbes about, I would say, maybe 3-4 years ago. But the real cost of owning a mutual fund, it's a great article and well written.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting hit for up to 4% in a mutual fund, and you're maybe only making 5, 6, 6.5, you're taking a pretty big bite there. So.
And it's not an expense you see on your statement,
exactly,
so it comes out of your return.
And that's what we're talking about, is hidden expenses, things that you've got to, be looking for inside there that are kind of tucked away neatly with some of the verbiage and different things. Also, variable annuity fees, Mark. That's another one that's a pretty big bite, right?
Well, variable annuities are one of the most expensive investment products you can purchase. The average fees on those is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5% to 4% per year. I particularly am not a fan of variable annuities. They're sold primarily by the big brokerage firms, the wirehouses and banks. That's who sells those. And I can tell you, when people come into the office, nobody really understands what they have. They don't even understand all the expenses. And as I explained to people, they said, I never understood this. And I said, of course you didn't, because if you did, you probably never would have purchased it. So sometimes there's things that you can do to get out of those. Sometimes you can't because there's huge surrender charges, but it's important that you understand exactly what you have and what you're purchasing and the reason why you bought that. But variable annuities is one that you want to make sure you understand before you purchase them.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, it's definitely one of the more expensive vehicles out there. So you want to know what you're doing, and you want to make sure you run this past your financial advisor. If you're working with somebody, ask these questions and make sure that you are getting the information that you're looking for. If you're not and you need to get a second opinion, well, you can certainly ask Mark Silverman at Silverman and Associates by calling or texting 520-333-7601. Mark, inflation is another thing. We're not just going to talk about vehicles here. We're going to talk about other items that can be a hidden expense and chip away at your retirement. Obviously, inflation is one that we all know, but maybe don't focus on.
Yeah, most people don't really consider the impact inflation has. When we run financial plans for people, we use 3% inflation rate in our practice. And what that means is you lose a third of purchasing power every 10 years. So if somebody's got a retirement of 20, 30, in some cases, maybe even 40 years, that's significant. So if somebody, let's say, for example, needs $50,000 a year in retirement, we're going to bump that up 3% each and every year until the end of their life expectancy. And people don't really realize how that works. If you have lucky enough to have a pension, that's usually a fixed payment. Social Security does go up a little bit, but not to the extent. It certainly doesn't increase 3% each year. So it's important that you have these income streams that are fixed. You need an increasing income to keep up with inflation. And again, most people can't understand that, or it's very hard for them to visualize that. So inflation is a very, very important thing, and it's real.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading something not too long ago. I don't remember the exact numbers, but just a kind of an idea was, I believe it was like if your expenses are $10,000 a month at retirement and you were retired for 30 years, it could be as high as $40,000, $25,000, $35,000, $40,000 as it kind of grows throughout with the inflation rate. I forget which article it was from, but it was definitely pretty interesting. They were also referencing how things change when a lot of retirees were talking about the vehicle that they're currently buying in 2015, 2016, 2017, like a new truck in some cases cost more than their original home purchase did, 35 years ago.
That's true. I mean, that's the impact of inflation, and that's just assuming a 3% rate of return.
Exactly.
We haven't discussed, the government printing all this money and inflation becoming a bigger issue down the road.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that you're staying ahead of inflation for sure. You don't want to just have the money just kind of sitting in your mattress, because while it might be sitting there safe, it's definitely going backwards when it comes to purchasing power. What about tax increases? You just kind of alluded to that a little bit.
This debt, with it increasing and the government spending all this money, that the debt's getting out of control. It already is out of control. And so it's not going to pay itself off. So unfortunately, the burden's going to be on us, on our children, our grandchildren, et cetera. And so, I think most people will agree that taxes are going to be higher than they are now. And relatively speaking, we have seen some increases the last couple of years, but I think that trend's going to have to continue. Logic tells you that, certainly. And so, being prepared and understanding what those tax increases are going to look like. And then for people in retirement, you don't have all those deductions that you might have had when you were younger. A lot of people don't have a mortgage anymore. The kids are out of the house, et cetera. So, those are important considerations that we really need to look at, is the tax implications for somebody that's retired or that's going to soon be retired.
Yeah. And finally, Mark, one of the things to consider on our hidden expenses segment here that is will chip away at you is your own increased leisure activities. That you're going to want to do more, especially in the early years of retirement. So don't forget to plan and be prepared for that increased amount of money being spent.
Exactly, Mark. So we spend a lot of time with people, sitting down, trying to understand. If they're already retired, it's a little bit easier because we know what they're spending in retirement, and we can help project those things. But if somebody's not retired yet and they're looking at retirement, what kind of things do you want to do in retirement? It's really a conversation, and really people, what I find is they don't spend enough time thinking about what they're going to do in retirement. And why that's so important is so we can understand what they might be spending in retirement. Most things cost money, unless you're donating your time to maybe a charity or an organization that you feel strongly about. Most things, travel, however you do it, whether it be driving or flying or whatever it might be, cost money, and we need to assign a number to those sorts of things. And people, again, don't spend enough time doing that. And as I said before, we could put a plan together for your money, but you need to put a plan together for your time. And again, it's so important that you start planning and really thinking about what you're going to do in retirement. And that's why why we encourage people to really put some time about what they're going to do in retirement, rather than just say they're going to retire without a plan in place.
Yeah. And if they'd like to get a plan put in place, Mark, or get a second opinion on maybe an existing plan they have in rolling, what does that look like if they reach out and contact you?
Sure, Mark. So, whether you're a first time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through a process we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. This is a lot different than what the other people on the radio are offering. Rather, we'll discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who is actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This becomes the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. Again, there's no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, Mark's mentioned it several times, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 10 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Absolutely. And as Mark said, for the next 10 callers, just go ahead and grab the phone. We know it's nearby you because it's always nearby. So reach out and text him or call him, 520-333-7601. Don't procrastinate and say you'll do it later, because as we all know, things get happening and we get busy and we forget. So what's it going to cost you? About an hour of your time is about it. So go ahead and reach out to Mark, 520-333-7601, to get it set up for success and retirement, and come in and see Mark Silverman of Silverman Associates and get this review, this complimentary review, absolutely with no obligation. 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. We'll be right back.
Life is complicated. It's full of twists and turns and complex issues. The last things you need when planning your financial future are confusing numbers and advisors who just offer you a sales pitch. We believe there's a simpler way to invest. Your financial plan should be built on a plan that's made just for you. It's all about discovering your goals and designing a strategy that will help you get where you want to go. And don't worry, we'll track your progress along the way. Stop wandering your way through your investing life. Come in for a visit today. To schedule a visit, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
At Silverman & Associates, we understand that life can be expensive. There are bills to pay, and you might have loved ones you want to look after. With all those extra expenses, it's easy to neglect your own financial health. We want to make sure you'll be well cared for when the time comes. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Well, you're back here with us on Saving with Silverman. Mark Killian, your host today, alongside of Mark Silverman, the president of Silverman & Associates. I guess it's the Mark and Mark show today, and we certainly hope you stick around for the rest of the show. We've got some great content coming up. Now, Mark is a certified financial planner professional here in the Tucson and Southern Arizona area, so don't forget to reach out to him by dialing or texting 520-333-7601. Reach out to Mark, get yourself on the calendar, come in for that consultation. 520-333-7601. Mark, do you like to talk about your feelings?
Sometimes.
Well, financial feelings is what we're going to talk about here. And believe it or not, financial planning isn't all about math and logic, folks. And of course, Mark can tell you that because obviously he's got the math and the logic and he's working on that end. But he also realizes, and we realize as customers or clients, that there are times when our feelings do kind of carry us into a topic or a subject. And there's lots of things you want to consider. You want to try not to make an emotional decision, but there's still going to be a factor. For example, when it comes to like the home that you live in, right, Mark, that can be a big piece of the financial feeling when folks are trying to decide, do they want to downsize or stay in the home that they maybe raised the family in?
And I think most people are on the same page in regards to that. Some people realize that maybe they don't want to take care of the big house anymore because the kids are gone and it's just too much upkeep. Some people want to keep that house. They enjoy it. That's where they raise their kids, memories. That's where kids, the kids, grandkids come back to for holidays, etc. Gatherings. But, in some cases, people want to downsize. They want something smaller. Maybe they want something smaller so they can, spend part of the time here, certainly when it's hot like it is now, so they can go somewhere where it may be cooler in the summertime. True. And so we see a lot of that as well.
Yeah, and I imagine like if you want to change a community, maybe you've always dreamed of living on a golf course, and so you want to downsize and maybe get a condo or something like that. So there's a lot that goes into it, and you want to make sure that you're making a smart decision from a math and logic standpoint, as well as that feeling standpoint, that emotional standpoint. People sometimes also have that same concern or same struggle, I guess, emotionally when it comes to the financial legacy, whether or not it's important, how important is it, things of that nature.
I think most people, want to make sure, one, that they're taken care of, that they're going to be financially independent, that they're able to do everything that they want to do. Because listen, they've worked hard for that money. That's their money that they've earned, and they want to spend it the way that they want to. And I think they do want to pass money on to kids or grandkids. And if they do, they want to make sure that they're able to do that without knowing that they're going to be a burden to their kids. So I think it's important that if they do those sorts of things, that again, everything's going to work out, and they're not going to, give away too much so that they put themselves in a bad situation. But we do have some clients that it's very, very important to them that they give money while they're still living, and they maybe pay for, education for the grandchildren or whatever it might be. So we can certainly help with those decisions as well. But, everybody's got a different opinion. That doesn't make one right versus one wrong. But we will build a custom plan that's going to work for everybody's unique situation. And I think that's the key.
Yeah, I knew a gentleman who was always saying that he wanted the last check he ever wrote in his life to bounce.
Yeah, that's the perfect retirement plan. Estate plan is have your last two checks bounce. That's
there you go.
Say.
And I was like, well, what about your kids? He's like, nah, they're not getting anything. So everybody's different, right? And so your feelings play a factor.
Exactly. I mean, this is all about feelings, because really what we're trying to do is understand feelings and how you feel about money, what's important to you about money, because money is just the tool. And so what we want to do is make sure that you're a good steward of it and making sure that you use it properly, and so it can accomplish the things that you're looking to accomplish.
That's a really great way to word that. I like that. It's money's the tool, and it's just a matter of helping you get to where you want to be. Yeah. Very good way of looking at that. Well, you're listening to Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman here, of course, with us. And we're talking about financial feelings. Mark, another one to consider for folks out there is, do you love, are you the kind of person that loves getting involved in the nitty-gritty details of all your investments and really being a hands-on kind of person? Or are you more simplistic and you really want to just kind of resolve yourself from that, and that's why you're hiring someone to help you and just kind of give as little of thought as possible? That's a big factor that you have to, make sure that you've weighed out for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people, certainly people that we talk to and that we work with, want to have an understanding as far as how their money's invested, where it's invested, that sort of thing. But they don't want to be involved in the day-to-day. They don't want to be looking in and managing their accounts and trading and doing all these different things on a day-to-day basis, because what why they're coming to us is because they want somebody else that they know can do a better job. And we've always said, do what you do best and hire the rest. That's right. So they can go out and do the things that they want to enjoy, whether it's playing golf or spending time with family or traveling, whatever it might be. They don't want to be managing their own investments. So to each their own, but we certainly I think it's important that people understand what they have. But as far as knowing the details of every little thing, most people that we work with don't want to know those things. But we're certainly happy to try to explain what people have, because at the end of the day, it is your money. You need to understand what's going on. Absolutely.
Well, if you'd like to talk to Mark about some of your financial feelings, reach out to him, call him, or text him anytime throughout the show, 520-333-7601, and discuss whether or not downsizing your home is important to you or leaving a financial legacy is important to you, things of that nature. And that's what we're talking about here today on the show. Mark, do you feel like, or do you see people come in and say they want to be debt-free, or some that say, I'm okay with carrying a little bit of debt? Kind of how does that play out?
Sure. We see it both ways. We have a lot of clients that don't have any debt. Their mortgages, their house is free and clear. They don't have any credit card debt. They don't owe anybody any money. With that being said, they still have, you still have property taxes, you have insurance, you have upkeep, those sorts of things. But it's all about cash flow. So As long as we can create the cash flow, does it make sense to have a debt? We can show on paper, maybe with interest rates low, maybe it makes sense if they're earning more on their investments than what they're paying. We can always make that argument. I've always said, and part of our planning process is it really comes down to peace of mind. Knowing that you are debt free, for a lot of people, that's an amazing feeling, to be financially independent that way. For some people, they don't mind if they have a mortgage. So it's looking at those discussions. In some cases, we decide, hey, maybe it's time to get rid of the mortgage, and here's how we're going to do it before we retire. For some people, maybe they want to carry that mortgage. Again, it's about cash flow, and we can make the argument either way, or at least do the analysis and help with that decision.
Yeah, it's a really good point. As you were saying that, I was thinking about it. It's like, when was the last time you could say you're kind of debt free? And it's like, well, okay, 15 and then maybe 65, depending on how you plan it, right?
True. But you still are going to have bills either way.
Of course, yeah, either way. But it would be an interesting feeling. And for a lot of folks, obviously, that does carry a huge emotional weight. So that's something that you want to consider. If that's your goal and you want to plan to be debt free in retirement, then you've got to work that plan. And of course, a big step is having a plan, and that's a lot of what Mark Silverman does at Silverman and Associates. And our final one here, Mark, on our financial feelings is how much does the market, bother you? Does the volatility of it drive you nuts? Does it cause you stress? Do you sit up and watch those shows constantly? That's an important factor for you to weigh in.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the most important things we do is really spend a lot of time assessing somebody's risk tolerance. And risk tolerance is how you feel about the market. And just because you're a certain age, or whether you're pre-retiree or retired, doesn't mean you have to be a certain risk tolerance. Everybody's got their own vision of what they're comfortable with, or what's going to keep them up at night. So we really do a really, really good job as far as understanding that. And when we take on a couple as a client, we'll actually assess both of their risk tolerances separately. And I think that's an important step as well, because we want to make sure that we're managing the assets appropriately. The second piece is looking at their plan and making sure that their risk tolerance, or volatility, whatever you want to call it, is going to keep them on track to achieve their goals. And if not, we need to have that discussion. A lot of times we're able to take somebody who might be aggressive or moderate, whatever you want to call it, or balanced investor, and show them that they're actually on track to hit their goals, even if they become more conservative. We want to not try to time the market, but we also want to recognize that we are in the second longest bull market in the history of the market. So logic tells you that we are due for a correction. I don't know if it's this year or next year or whatever, but we want to be cautious of that and making sure we're doing our job correct. And it's a matter of understanding their risk tolerance and where they are in relation to their goals, and making sure that all those pieces work together.
All of these categories, I guess, come back to proper planning, and that's really what the first step is all about when they come and see you at Silverman and Associates, right?
Yeah, Mark. So, just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So if you're do-it-yourself or already working with someone, this is now your chance to go through the process we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement that you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We do our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 7 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Absolutely, folks. So go ahead and take this opportunity to reach out to Mark right now by calling or texting 520-333-7601. It's a great chance to just make sure you're on the right road for retirement. Get that financial physical. Mark was talking about that second opinion. Come in, sit down, have a conversation with Mark right here in Tucson or Southern Arizona. If you can hear our voice, basically, he can give you a hand. 520-333-7601 to talk with Mark Silverman, a certified financial planner professional at Silverman and Associates. Stick around. There is much more to come on today's show. You're listening to Saving with Silverman.
Do you ever feel like you need Superman to help you with your financial crisis?
I've got you.
You've got me? Who's got you?
Well, we're not superheroes, but we can save the day when it comes to your finances. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Well, it's getting to know you time here on Saving with Silverman, and this is where we step away from the financial chatter for a moment or two and talk with Mark about his personal life, get to know him a little bit better outside of the financial world. And we got a good one for you this week, Mark. If you had to name your greatest accomplishment so far in life, what might you say that is?
That's a great one. Without saying, obviously my daughter, raising our daughter Ava, that's always probably one of the greatest accomplishments. That's probably what everybody says. But I would have to say, the partnership that me and my wife have and what we've built together and the life and trying to be a better husband, father, son, brother, that sort of thing, is always something that I've always tried to be a better listener and always trying to improve myself mentally, physically, etc.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, absolutely, because we all want to do better for our children, obviously, right? And typically having children is usually that crowning achievement for a lot of us. And I think that's a really great answer to say not only are you wanting to be a great dad, but also a great husband, great man, great person in general. So nothing wrong with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, be a role model.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Well, that's our getting to know you this week with Mark Silverman. I think we could all do a little bit more of being a better role model. So there you go. Reach out to Mark if you'd like to. 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. We'll be right back.
Planning for retirement shouldn't be a mystery. So why is it so easy to get bogged down with financial terms and advisors who try to offer you a sales pitch? At Silverman and Associates, Mark Silverman and his team take pride in looking after their clients' best interests. They strive to educate you about the financial world. If you want a customized financial plan that's unique to your goals, schedule a visit with the team today. Schedule a complimentary review of your situation. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Have you ever heard that story about the grasshopper and the ant? You know, the one where the grasshopper fails to plan in the spring and almost starves to death in the winter? Learn from that. Don't wait until it's too late to get your finances in order. Start your path to a rewarding retirement today. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Well, you're listening to Saving with Silverman, and it's story time. Mark's going to grab out his chair and his favorite pipe and his slippers, and he's going to tell us a story about yesteryear. No, I'm kidding. Mark's going to tell us a little story here about himself, and basically when it comes to helping clients and things of that nature, we just want to kind of get some insight into what that looks like. And Mark, for today's story time, can you tell us a time when you helped someone who's come in and said, "Man, if I had just met you sooner"?
That's every week.
Okay.
Pretty much. I mean, I get that a lot.
That's a great compliment, though, right?
Well, it's a compliment, but at the same token, you can't beat yourself up for decisions of where you got to this point.
Good point.
All you can do is take the best information that you can and move forward. You can't kick yourself for woulda, shoulda, coulda, that sort of thing. So, when people plan ahead, I've always said they get to enjoy choice and avoid trade-offs. And it's better to plan with possibilities rather than just probabilities. So it's important to assess where somebody is. Could they have saved more? Could they have done this? Sure, but let's assess where you are, and then let's look and see where you want to be and make sure that we're on track. Maybe you're not as in bad a shape as you think you are, or maybe you're not even close to being on track, and you have no clue where you are. And you're better off, as I've said before, Mark, you've probably heard me say this, that if you're going to run out of money, would you rather know today or after it's happened?
Yep.
So the sooner you take action, the better off you're going to be. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't really start until they hit their 50s as far as saving. And we all know that if you start in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s, you're going to be far ahead of the game and not have to save as much if you got on a regular pattern of saving. But, I just had somebody getting back to your question that we met with last week, and they were hadn't been working with an advisor at all, had been doing it themselves, and weren't in terrible shape, but, going through the process and really looking at where they are, they're going to be okay. Could they have done things better? Certainly, but we're going to get them on track and making sure that their biggest problem was inflation. They were sitting too much in cash and they weren't keeping up with inflation. So that was the biggest problem. Again, we're always trying to fine tune and get people in the best position that they can possible. And sometimes it takes a lot of fine tuning. Sometimes it's not as much, but there's always room for improvement, right?
Absolutely. And some sage words of wisdom there from Mark Silverman. If you're going to run out of money, would you like to know before it happens or after? So
Sure.
Today or after, there you go. So
today.
that's just hitting it right on the head right there. All right, folks, stick around. There is much more to come today on Saving with Silverman. Don't forget, reach out to Mark, 520-333-7601. Don't go anywhere.
Mark Silverman is a lifelong Arizonan, and his firm is based right here in Tucson. When you come in for a visit, you can expect someone who's familiar with your community. At Silverman & Associates, our relationship with you is most important to us. We want to build you a financial plan that's unique to your goals. No generic products, no corporate red tape, just friendly folks looking to give you a comprehensive approach to retirement planning. Come in for a visit today and let us help you build a meaningful retirement. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Picture this. Your financial statements have come in the mail. What's going through your head as you open them up? Maybe all that financial jargon is flustering. Maybe the numbers are confusing, or maybe those red arrows are leaving you in a funk. Don't base your future on a monthly letter. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman. Learn what true financial planning really looks like.
Well, we're moving along nicely today here on Saving with Silverman. Thanks so much for sticking around on the show with us today. Mark Killian alongside Mark Silverman, the president of Silverman & Associates. If you'd like to reach out to Mark, go ahead and give him a call or text him if that's more comfortable for you at 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Mark, do you find yourself to be right or wrong a lot? I guess it depends on if you're arguing with your wife, right?
She's always right, isn't that the answer?
I was going to say that's what I'm saying, because mine's listening and I'm making sure, right? I'm always wrong. But no, I want to talk about right or wrong. And actually on this topic, this is kind of I think it's going to be kind of fun, because a lot of these, I don't know that there is a right or wrong answer, but I'll give you some of these topics and you can kind of debate back and forth there a little bit on what you think. And again, I think a lot of times there's two schools of thought on a lot of this stuff. So you may find that your opinion differs from Mark, but that's part of what the show is all about. You can come in and sit down and have a conversation and really dive into these things and see what's the best solution for you based on what you need. So we'll have a little fun here with right or wrong, and we'll kind of touch on something we touched on the last segment, and that's what's it better, Mark? Is it to pay off the debt or build up those savings?
Well, that's a good one. One, I think the debt, it matters what type of debt. Is it a mortgage or is it credit card debt? Credit card debt is the worst debt you can have. It's the highest interest rate. It's not deductible, et cetera. So credit card debt's the worst possible thing you could have. as far as building up savings, you do need an amount of cash reserves and savings. At a minimum, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses should be liquid. For a lot of our retired clients, we even err on the more conservative side and say you have 12 months worth of expenses. So let's say you spend $4,000 a month, and for 12 months would be $48,000. If it's 3 to 6 months, then you could do the math. It's somewhere between $12,000 to $24,000 should be liquid. So I think it's important that you have a mix of both. You got to have liquidity in case something happens, emergencies. That's why we call it emergency funds, liquidity, that sort of thing. But you want to try to pay off the debt as well. And if it's credit card debt, as fast as possible. If it's a mortgage, it's not as important to pay that off as quickly.
Okay, well, you mentioned the mortgage, and that was actually going to be my next question to you. I've heard a lot of people out there saying that it's better to keep that mortgage if you can, depending obviously on the rates, but others that say, no, get rid of the house as soon as possible.
Mark, that really depends on peace of mind, as I said, I think earlier. I can make the argument that it makes sense to have a mortgage because the interest rates are low and you get the deduction on the interest potentially. And if you're earning more on your investments, then it makes sense to keep the mortgage because you don't have a lot of deductions in retirement. But by the same token, a lot of people want to be financially independent and debt free and have that sense of pride knowing that they don't owe any money to anybody. And so we can make that argument. I would say it varies. I would say a lot of our clients have done a great job as far as paying off the debt and don't have mortgages and don't have debt. But we have others that do, and they're still fine as long as we can create the cash flow. They're still going to be financially successful and while keeping that mortgage, but maybe at some point deciding to pay it off.
Okay. All right. So good thinking there. A lot to consider, obviously, because as we touched on in the prior segment as well, it could be an emotional decision. So you really want to make sure that you're talking with your advisor and really sharing this information so that, they understand where you want to go and what the best strategy is. And they can obviously give you the math and the logic and all those good pieces. And then you can come to a solution there. Same thing with life insurance, Mark. I know that a lot of times, is it right or wrong to say term life, permanent life? What's the deal?
That's an interesting question. Term is the cheapest form, but also, if you look at the numbers, something like 98% of all term policies never pay out a benefit. And I'll say that again.
Wow.
Something like 98% of all term policies never pay a benefit. So what it is people buy term, the term comes due, and that policy's gone. So all the money they paid, yes, they had, if something would have happened, they had a benefit that would have been paid. But at the end of that term, they have nothing. So it is cheap. But you're not really getting anything at the end if you don't die in that term. And so I think for somebody younger, that's all that they can afford. And if they have a mortgage and they're the sole breadwinner, that kind of thing, maybe that makes sense. It's better than nothing. But for most people, I think some type of permanent policy makes more sense because yes, you're paying more, but there's going to be a guaranteed benefit that's going to be paid out to somebody that you care about. And with life insurance now, there's so many unique benefits other than just a death benefit. We're using life insurance now to cover long-term care expenses. We're using life insurance to create tax-free income in retirement. So there's lots of different uses for insurance than most people really understand. So I think having those conversations and when we weigh the trade-offs of term versus permanent, I think most people will agree that there are some more benefits in permanent. Even though you're paying more, you're getting more. So it's a good conversation to have.
Absolutely. Well, you're listening to Saving with Silverman, and you're hearing Mark Silverman, the president of Silverman and Associates, here on today's show. We're talking about right or wrong, and whether things it's better to have some debt or build up your savings. I don't think there's any really right or wrong answer, but there's certainly, depending on your situation, going to be an answer that's better suited for you. And if you'd like to find out what that best recourse is going to be, then reach out to Mark and call him or text him at any time at 520-333-7601. It's 520-333-7601. Sit down and have a conversation and really discuss your unique situation, because that's what it all comes down to. What might work well for your neighbor is not necessarily going to work well for you. But we're going to keep Mark on the spot anyway for right now on the show. And with the right or wrong, Mark, here's the tough ones. Are mutual funds good or bad?
I wouldn't say mutual funds are good or bad. I mean, I think there's better ways than mutual funds. And there's different types of mutual funds. I think low cost and no load mutual funds are certainly better than loaded mutual funds. And I used to sell loaded mutual funds. That's what we did when I started in this business over 20 years ago. I wouldn't buy a loaded mutual fund now, and we can use mutual funds in our practice, but we prefer to use either individual securities or ETF, exchange traded funds. So I think there's better options out there, but certainly there are funds that are better than others. So, but again, if you're in a 401k or 403b, a TSP, those sorts of things, and all you have is mutual funds, you've got to make the best decision you can with what's allotted to you. But certainly if you're putting your money in an account where you can do anything you want with it, my first choice would not be buying a mutual fund.
Obviously keeping you on the spot here, the annuities, the big old A word, good or bad? I know there's two sides, right?
When you say annuities, there's different types. You have variable and you have fixed. And I'm not a fan of variable. I think, as I mentioned earlier, they're one of the most expensive investment products out there. And I think they, in my opinion, I think they provide more benefit to the person selling them than the person that's buying them. And so I would not buy a variable annuity. I think they're a horrible investment, but there are certain fixed annuities that I think can work very, very well. Having said that, does that mean everybody needs a fixed annuity? Absolutely not. Everybody's situation is different. I have some clients that have annuities and I have some clients that don't. Everybody's situation is different, so we need to look at the pros and cons of each investment before we make that decision. But to say, generally speaking, are annuities good or bad? It depends on the type and it depends on your situation.
I know that there's people out there who preach that, all annuities are bad and some that say all annuities are good. So again, like almost any investment vehicle, it really comes down to what's the right situation for you, right? And you're just not going to know that until you sit down and have a conversation with, someone who is going to be able to talk to you about the pros and cons of all aspects when it really comes to it. And that's a lot of what Mark Silverman does. So feel free to reach out to him at any time, folks. Our final one here for right or wrong is on gold. Mark, I know sometimes that winds up being a hot topic because everyone's like, oh, we should buy gold. So is it good or is it bad?
Well, the whole precious metals conversation, should you buy gold or even buy silver? It's on, if you turn on the TV, every other commercial, it seems like on certain stations is offering to do precious metals.
Right.
Can't lose, that sort of thing, or it's never gone to zero, which is true, but you could still lose money. There's plenty of people that have lost money in precious metals, and it can be bought in many different ways. You could actually buy, physical gold. You can buy it in a mutual fund, you can buy it in an ETF, etc. So there's different ways to do it. Although I'm not a huge fan of precious metals, I do think it makes sense for some people. I wouldn't put more than probably 10% of your asset allocation into precious metals. We do some of it here in the office in some cases. But to say everybody should have precious metals, I wouldn't say that. But I don't think it's a horrible idea if people want to put part of their money into precious metals. You're probably better off using actually holding the physical gold. It's a less of a cost to carry it versus holding it in a fund. But that's for you to determine that. But again, it depends on your situation.
Well, all of this taken into account, Mark, when people come in to sit down and have a conversation with you, they're going to touch on a lot of these different types of vehicles, whether it's mutual funds, annuities, paying off debt, all those kinds of things. And really, the idea is just to get together, working with someone that you're comfortable with and get a plan that's best for you, right?
That's exactly right, Mark. So again, whether you're a first-time listener or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense, resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office, which is air conditioned, which is a big deal this in the summertime, getting out of the heat, and to go through what we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I'll not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting, and I'm aware of the other shows that are on this station as well as other stations that they're there just to sell you an annuity or sell you mutual funds, whatever it might be. This is totally different. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have it, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets, and we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. And this will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you are aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We do try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly, so I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
All right, let's find out if we are indeed retirement ready and reach out to Mark Silverman right now. 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. You can call, leave a message, or you can text. Either way, whatever is more comfortable and convenient for you. But the biggest thing is just to go ahead and reach out and take some action now and get started today so that you can get where you want to be tomorrow on that retirement plan that it's going to give you that peace of mind and that comfort. 520-333-7601. Find out where you stand. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. We'll be right back.
Did you know that Mark Silverman and his team offer a complimentary Get Acquainted meeting where you can learn more about what he can do for you? The goal is to determine whether you might be a good fit for each other. That's because the folks at Silverman & Associates are all about building long-standing relationships. They aren't offering you a slick sales pitch or a get-rich-quick approach to retirement. Instead, Mark offers a simpler approach to investing. It's based upon your goals, and his strategies are tailored to your needs. To find out more about his unique planning process, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
You finished school and worked hard to get your first job. You told yourself you'd save for retirement, but that old jalopy you bought when you were 16 broke down, so you bought a new one. You started to save, and soon you bought your first home. Then came pets, kids, and your world changed some more. You worked hard to provide for your family. You made sure your kids got a good education. You might be sending them to school right now, or maybe it's the grandkids' turn. And of course, you're now making sure your parents are looked after. Through the years, you lovingly sacrificed for your family. Now it's time to take care of you. Love others well by taking care of yourself. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman to discover how to build a financial plan that'll continue providing for you and the ones you love for years to come.
Well, we're cruising down the home stretch here today on Saving with Silverman. Thanks so much for staying tuned in with us today. We certainly appreciate it. And if you'd like to reach out to Mark Silverman, who is the president of Silverman & Associates right here in Tucson and Southern Arizona, just give him a call or a text at 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. As Mark said, his office is air-conditioned, so come on in, sit down, and have a conversation and cool off a little bit and have a conversation about your financial plan and your unique, specific financial situation. 520-333-7601. Well, Mark, it's one of our favorite times of the show. It's time to reach into the mailbag and get some questions from around the area. So let's dive in, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. Our first one today from Floyd in Marana. And Floyd says, "Hey, Mark, I recently turned 50, which means I can start contributing more money to my 401k each year. Should I do this or should I not?"
I would say, since you're now eligible for what we call the catch-up, I would contribute as much as you possibly can into your 401k. And so with that being said, I've never had somebody that said we saved too much money and I've got a lot more money than I need, and that's a problem. On the other hand, if what we do find is people aren't saving enough. So the more you could save, the better off you're going to be. Are you saving enough? Well, that's a question that You'd have to come in and we'd have to look and see what, when you're looking at retiring, how much you might need, and we can certainly run those numbers for you and determine if you're saving enough, if you're on track to have the type of retirement that you're thinking of having. So again, put as much as possible as you can away. Your best bet is to max out your 401k because that's going to give you the biggest deduction on your taxes, and you may even want to start saving some extra money if you have some still available after you do that as well. Instead of putting 18,000 away on your end, you could put in 24,000. So
yeah,
it's a big difference.
Kind of a no-brainer there, Floyd. So I think you're fine. I don't think there's anything to worry about. But obviously, if you do have concerns about other parts of your retirement plan, certainly reach out to Mark 520-333-7601. We've got a question from Miss Helen in Green Valley, and Helen says, is it okay to have several different IRAs, Mark, or should I consolidate them? I have 7 accounts.
Well, Helen, great question. It's not, there's nothing wrong with having 7 different accounts, 7 different IRAs. However, we're big fans of consolidating. So wherever you can, if you have Roths and traditional IRAs, those can't be combined. But if you have 7 traditional IRAs, which it sounds like you do, we think you're better off consolidating. And the reason being is keeping track of having to take what is known as RMDs, required minimum distributions, at age 70 and a half is far more difficult when you have 7 accounts than it would be with 1. And you don't have to take it all from one account. As you probably know, you can calculate what that number is and take it from one or the other. The IRS doesn't care which account it comes out of as long as you're taking the right amount out. Where I see problems is as people get older, they tend to maybe forget that they have one somewhere and they didn't take an RMD. And so that's where we try to simplify it, not just for your case, but let's say for your children's case, if they're going to be inheriting these accounts, why not keep it simpler for them? So consolidation makes a lot of sense in our opinion.
Yeah, that's a really good point, too, because if you do forget and you forget to take that RMD, it's a heck of a penalty. So
it's 50%. Yeah, it's huge.
So it's pretty pricey. So great question, Helen. We certainly appreciate that. I'm sure that Mark can give you a hand with consolidation or just what the best tactic is for you. Go ahead and call or text 520-333-7601. And again, thanks for listening to Saving with Silverman. Our final question this week, Mark, is from Howard in Saddlebrook. And Howard says, I've heard that it's wise to roll over my 401k after leaving my job. So that's what I've always planned to do. But that account has been doing really well for the last several months. So I feel hesitant to make changes to it. What's your thoughts, Mark? Should I leave it alone?
Well, that's a great question, Howard. It goes back to choice. And I have this conversation a lot when people come into the office. Even if you're with a company that has a great 401k plan, you're limited on their choices. And as you've probably seen, you may have had a lot more choices previously than you do now, because the more choices your company makes eligible, the more expensive it is to administer the plan. So where you might have had maybe 20 choices, now you only maybe have 10. And so, and you're limited to mutual funds. We had this discussion earlier. I think there's better ways than mutual funds. So if you were to take that money and roll it into a self-directed IRA, it's a non-taxable event. It does a couple things. One is you're not limited on those mutual funds. In fact, you could do any mutual fund you want, basically, by rolling into a self-directed IRA. The other thing is you don't even have to do mutual funds. You could do individual securities. You can do ETFs. So it opens up the world to a lot more choice. The other thing is it's a lot easier to deal with, depending on where you roll it to, custodian rather than dealing with your old HR at your old company, which may limit you on when you can take it and how much and access and that sort of thing. So in my opinion, there's no reason to leave an old 401k. The only time it makes sense to leave a 401k is if you're still working at age 70 and a half for that same employer. You don't have to take RMDs, required minimum distributions. That's the only benefit. But if you've left that job or you're not working at age 70 and a half, again, there's no benefit of doing that. So, looking at the options, you want to make sure you do it right and making sure that you're rolling it over correctly so it's not a taxable event.
All right,
great
Howard.
Question.
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. Howard, Helen, Floyd, really anybody out there listening today, if you find yourself in this situation where you need to get a second opinion, you need to get this retirement plan looked at or even started, Mark Silverman is a great resource. So let's go ahead and make that offer one more time as we wrap up the show today for our listeners.
So here's a simple question. And can you answer it honestly and objectively as possible? Aside from the happy hellos and how's the family, and aside from the occasional lunch or golf game, I get it. I'm as much friends with so many of my clients, they become true friends over the years. But I think the question has to be asked, especially in light of the stakes. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value beyond a doubt? Is your current financial advisor truly adding value? It's a valid question, as a friendship or just relationship allows you not to be in that position to ask those critical questions. Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about Social Security and the income and diversification and insurance and estate planning and healthcare? Are you having those annual reviews, but hopefully it's more frequently than that? Is there detailed follow-up? Is there accountability? If you are, if all that is happening, congratulations, because you've got a great relationship, and send your financial advisor a thank you. But if you're not having that, if you're not feeling the value, if you're not having these in-depth conversations, then you owe it to yourself and really to your family to have a conversation with someone else, because if you don't, you're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's going to pay the cost, and it'll cost you in more ways than you'll ever know. Let us prove to you how we can help your money go further in retirement. Let us show you with our financial physical. I believe you'll be shocked at what you'll learn, and this won't cost you anything. Give us a call at 520-333-7601. 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
All right, everyone, we're talking to retirees and pre-retirees. This is a great offer and a great opportunity from Mark Silverman, president of Silverman and Associates, to go ahead and reach out and get yourself on the calendar to get this process started. 520-333-7601. Come in, sit down, have a conversation with Mark, and truly see where you stand when it pertains to your retirement. We certainly appreciate you listening to Saving with Silverman each and every week, so make sure that you go ahead and take some action and reach out to Mark right now as we depart. 520-333-7601. Mark, as always, thanks for being on the show and offering up your advice and your wisdom.
Mark, always happy to be here, and everybody stay cool out there. Make sure you drink plenty of water.
Absolutely. And make sure you tune in each and every week for more of Mark Silverman right here on Saving with Silverman. Bye-bye.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.